Hello everyone and welcome back to the DCS Hornet Academy. This is going to be lesson number 5 and we're going to cover kneeboards today. This one will probably one of the shortest videos, which is probably a good thing because although kneeboards are very useful and that's why I wanted to talk about it, it's still not flying. So we're gonna go over it and then get on to the bigger and better things in lesson 6. So we are here at Kabuleti Airport, which is going to be our home for the duration of flight training here at the Academy. So let's jump into the cockpit and let's start talking about kneeboards. So, what is a kneeboard? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is find out what is the key binding to pull up a kneeboard, and then we will start talking about it. So let's go escape and adjust controls. Go up here as we had discussed in the previous lesson on how to bind keybind, so you should be familiar with that by now. And all you do is you search for kneeboard. And you can see there's a whole bunch of them. The only one that you really need to worry about is the kneeboard on-off toggle, which is what I use. And I've toggled it here to one of my stick base buttons, as I had shown in my previous setup video. And by the way, this is a good opportunity to say that when you want to try and try your keybinds, so all you do is you go to whatever joystick. So if I click on the kneeboard button on my joystick, it will go there and it'll say that's my kneeboard. If I click on the one next to it, well, that's not working for some reason. Okay, there we go. If I click like the gun trigger, for example, it shows that it goes there. If I do the weapon release, so you can easily see what are all of these are my throttle designators. And if I click on my throttle, it will do the same thing. So these are like my brake switches, my flaps. So it's a good way to figure out what you have bound. So there you go. So go ahead and bind that kneeboard button, and now let's go back. Now that you've bound that, you click it, and you will see this the kneeboard come up on the right. So if you go to the top left here, you can actually make it change its size. And usually what I do is I'll make it fill my whole right of my screen, just so. So at the bottom here, you will see that you can scroll through the pages, and I believe there's also a shortcut to do that, but I just usually click here. I probably should bind that. And let's go first of all to the standard one. So if you go left, typically there are standard kneeboards that come with the terrain. So the first thing that you should know about is what is a kneeboard. A kneeboard is essentially what pilots put on their knee, and it's a board, hence the name, that displays a useful information to the pilot. They can take notes, they can reference it during flight or on the ground or whatever. It's just information that you have available to you that's besides your own aircraft systems. Most typically, based on the kneeboards that you can see here, the most typical kneeboard that pilots use is a checklist. So a checklist for startup, a checklist for takeoff and landing, and all of the other checklists. So this is an example here. This one is the F-18C Hornet checklist. It has the engine start, before taxi checklist, before takeoff, airborne. And then if you go click the next one, you've got all your other checklists, like before on approach and before shutdown and whatnot. This is actually not something that is available by standard in the game. So it is something you have to add to your game, which is why we're covering it right here. So going back to the standard checklist, so if you go to the left, these are all standard checklists. So this is your you could call it kind of like your sectional chart or your navigational chart that basically shows you the map of the region that you're flying in. It will show waypoints, and it will also show you can mark your position um, and show you where you are on the map when you're doing visual navigation, and we're going to cover that in the navigation lesson. So yeah, you can see that you can scroll through the maps, and then you come here to the airport diagrams. So the other thing that typically Kneeboards will have is airport diagrams and then instrument related documents such as approach plates or standard departures, instrument departures, standard terminal arrivals, and things that we will cover later. So for example, right here we have, the aerodrome chart for Mozdok, right? And I think we have a E2 taking off. That is awesome. All right, so this is important for when you want to, um, have figure out what are the taxiways, um, and we're gonna go over that later on um, when we go over the taxi and takeoff portion of the video. But all you need to know right now is that airport diagrams that show the taxiways and all of your airport information, such as frequencies and things like that, are on these diagrams. All of these are the ones that come with the Caucasus map, and they are included for everybody with the Caucasus map. So we're going to keep scrolling through all of them. These are all the airports that are in the map. And then here, for example, you have like Kutaisi. Here you have arrival and departure procedures for the various airports, and eventually, you have like symbology for the maps and stuff like that. These are very useful kneeboards that every pilot should definitely reference. And essentially, they are custom kneeboards that are not available, unfortunately, um, by default in DCS, and I'm going to show you guys how to add them. So, especially this one. This one is very important. Okay, this one is an example of a Case 1 kneeboard, or a kneeboard suite for Case 1. Case 1 is the type of recovery or type of patterns that you fly when you are going to a carrier, when you're going to land on a carrier. Um, and these are the things we're going to go over when we go to the carrier lessons, carrier ops. But it's an example of, so these are things that, hey, these are things you should have memorized and to be honest, for example, I don't use this kneeboard, like, because I have all of this memorized. And for these type of procedures, um, generally, like, if you have to reference these, means you haven't done your homework. So yeah, maybe it's good to have if you have a complete brain fart, but really this type of information you should know. But it just shows you that you can go ahead and have this type of kneeboard. This is one of the type of kneeboards you can have, is procedures for example, carrier ops, right? And then we talked about the checklist. So that's kind of it. As far as the checklist and sorry, the kneeboards, and so yeah, those are the 3 or 4 types of things you will most commonly see. So A is checklist for your aircraft, such as start and landing and things like that. Um, the second thing would be airport diagrams and all of your aeronautical charts and instrument charts. So things like airport diagrams, taxiway diagrams, approach plates, and all your all your visual charts, instrument charts, and all of that stuff. And the other stuff would be procedures like a carrier ops, for example. That is most often what you use, but in a combat environment, you have all sorts of other things. For example, probably the most important, item is something that is not here because I'm not on a server, most servers have the frequency information that you need to tune in for your radio. So things like what is the local air traffic frequency, what is the what's the tactical frequencies, what is the AWACS or tanker frequencies, or what are you know um, any other frequency that you might need to fly or in combat in a multiplayer environment is listed usually on a frequency page. The other things will be navigational aids and all sorts of information that the pilots may want to need for during when they're on certain mission. So we click out of that, and that's it. That's how it is in game, right? So now if I alt tab out, we're gonna go and check out what the kneeboards look like, in um, in the folder structures. So as I mentioned, there's three types of kneeboards that you can have in DCS. The first ones are these, well, right here. So let's start from this one. So this is like in your DCS main game folder, wherever you put that, under mods, under terrains, for each terrain, like in this case is the Caucasus, there's a kneeboard folder. So if you see, this is the path to that kneeboard folder. You see all of the kneeboards that we just looked at and the Caucasus are here. If I go and click edit, and I edit it in Paint, you will see that it's a 768 by 1024 pixel image, and this is like a PNG. So you can have, if you don't want it to stretch and stuff, this is kind of the size you want to go for. But otherwise, like more or less, things will stretch a bit, but typically, roughly you want it in this size. So anything you put as an image in here will show up on your kneeboard, right? If you put it in that folder. So let's click out of this. So here you go. So for example, if I double click, that's one of the airport diagram that was in there. So if you put anything in here on the Caucasus map, it will not show up on any other map, but it is going to show basically for every aircraft that you, regardless of aircraft, for that map, it's going to show up those kneeboards. I'm pretty sure it will be on your machine. It has to be on server side, I'm pretty sure, if you wanted a server to show those things. Because, for example, when I join a server, I don't have a lot of the other kneeboards, so those come either with a mission or they're loaded on the servers itself. So that brings me to I guess the next type of kneeboard. So the next type, let's go, is the right here. So if you go under your saved games, DCS open beta or whatever folder, like here, this is your main folders, you go under kneeboard, and typically you will have nothing. It's going to be an empty one. These are your custom kneeboards. If you don't put in an aircraft name, and you put images of kneeboards here, basically every aircraft type will have that kneeboard. It's a global kneeboard, basically, and you will have it on every aircraft and on every map. If you want kneeboards specific to a specific aircraft, you have to follow the naming convention for aircraft. So there is, if I go to liveries, for example, you will see there's specific ways that things are named, and you will be able to find those, in the in the main game folder. But essentially, there's a way to name that folder. In the case of an F-18, which is all we really care about here, is the FA-18C underscore Hornet. And that means that all the kneeboards you put in here are only for the Hornet, but across, all missions and all servers, right? So, so for example, these are the ones we just looked at. I had the 2 startup checklist, the case 1 checklist, and these very important other kneeboards that I had showed you guys, that you guys should also grab. So these should be like, if these kneeboards right now, I should be able to see this on everything that I join with a Hornet, right? The last type of kneeboard that you can create is based on missions. So if you go to any mission file, so in this case I have under save games on my missions, I have these files. A mission is a mis.file. file. This is what their extension is, and they're essentially zipped folders. So all you have to do is you open the content of a mission file. You say open with, and your favorite zip software. So in this case, I'm going to use RAR, and then typically this kneeboard folder is not going to be in there. It's going to be all these other things. If you want kneeboard specific to a mission that you're creating, where everybody who gets into that mission will see that those kneeboards, regardless of what they have on their own computer, then you create a folder called Kneeboard, just like this, all capitals. Then you click on it, and you have another folder called Images. You have to create these folders just like this. And if you go into Images and you put any kneeboard, just like we did on the other ones, then these will show up for any aircraft within that mission. Now, if I go and create a folder called, actually this should be FA 18C, I'm pretty sure. It's got to be the same as all the other standard naming folders for that aircraft. As I said, just go to your main DCS core mods folder, and you will see what is the standard naming convention for each aircraft. But anyways, you call it FA18C, you click on it, and you create another folder underneath that's called Images, and then in here all the images are specific to that aircraft within that mission. And everybody who gets into that mission and into that aircraft will see that folder. So there you have it. That's the last thing I guess that I want to talk about is there is a software, a free software that you can download that's called Open Kneeboard. I personally haven't used this very much, but I'm just behind the curve, and I know a lot of my squad mates and my CO, always tells me to use it, and I haven't yet. But I intend to. And sorry, let's go back here because we have a takeoff going on. And of course, we have to witness that and show respect for the E3 taking off. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so what this thing is first of all, it's called Open Kneeboard. You can download it, and it tells you kind of how to use it, anyways. But if we go and click here, you see all those the ones that we had just looked at. So this shows you the contents of your aircraft folder. This shows you the content of the what do you call it? The Caucasus map that we're on right now. So these are all the kneeboards for your Caucasus map. And then in mission, well, we don't have anything right now. We don't have any specific mission-based kneeboards, but this is where you would go and you would rearrange them. And this is basically a tool that helps you organize your kneeboards. And I think there's other tools out there for DCS as well. But for now, yeah, just know that, be aware that there is these programs that basically help you manage your kneeboards easily. So you can just put them in there whenever you have a specific mission, and you will have the correct kneeboards. You don't have to use it. It's pretty cool, and I think I will start using it. But otherwise, you have to basically go into this F-18 Hornet and always, keep updating this with whatever kneeboards you need for that particular mission. Okay, well, that is it, ladies and gents. That is lesson 5 kneeboards. Again, hopefully that helped you guys. It will be very useful to reference kneeboards going forward. So yeah, I think we are congrats. I think we're over the very boring part of the academy, because in lesson 6 we're gonna go it's the introduction to the FA-18 Hornet, where we're gonna go over the Hornet itself, and we're gonna go over cockpit familiarization. So all of these buttons that may look super intimidating the first time you jump into a cockpit, we're going to go over what they are, what they do, and get you guys going. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I absolutely love the Hornet's cockpit, and yeah, just um, it's gonna be a great video where we all learn about what everything does in the Hornet's cockpit. All right, thanks everyone. Um, if you're enjoying so far the series and um, you're gaining something from these videos, um, please do support me and let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel, providing your comments so that the YouTube algorithm can help out and we can help even more people. And I can go ahead and continue making these videos. So thanks so much and see you in lesson 6.